During the height of World War II, when bombers roared over cities and coastal towns braced for invasion, many civilians were left with a grim realization. If the front lines fell, their own homes might become the last line of defence. Without modern alarms or reinforced steel locks, ordinary people had to invent practical ways to secure their property and protect their families. What emerged from that era wasn't just barbed wire and blackout curtains. It was a complete philosophy of home defence that blended simplicity, resourcefulness and raw deterrence. What's surprising is that many of these wartime methods still work just as effectively today, often better than modern security gadgets that depend on electricity or networks that can fail when you need them most. When Britain faced the threat of invasion in 1940, the government urged civilians to prepare their homes for possible attacks and looting. Blackouts kept windows dark, but homeowners quickly realized they needed more than darkness. They needed barriers. With steel rationed for weapons and vehicles, people turned to materials they already had: gravel, wire mesh, old doors, and heavy timber. They created layered defences, a term borrowed from field manuals, that delayed intruders long enough for help to arrive or for families to hide safely. These layers weren't sophisticated, but they were ingenious. Windows were reinforced using wooden crossbars screwed into frames. Door hinges were reversed so that they opened inward, making them harder to force. Narrow entryways were blocked with furniture, and glass panels were backed with wire to resist shattering. The goal wasn't just to keep out soldiers. It was to slow down burglars, looters, or desperate neighbours if civil order broke down. Even cities like London, which faced nightly bombings, saw entire neighbourhoods quietly reinforcing homes under the guidance of local Home Guard units. One of the most underrated and effective defences came from an odd combination: grease, gravel and physics. During the blackout years, homeowners learned to use slippery surfaces as deterrents. They poured used engine oil or lard onto gravel paths leading to windows and back doors. The mixture made quiet movement nearly impossible. Intruders would slip or crunch loudly on the uneven, oily ground, instantly alerting anyone inside. You know, this trick became so widespread that British and Scandinavian civil defence manuals actually recorded it. It was cheap, silent and reusable. In rural areas, farm families poured animal fat near entry points to make muddy ground treacherous for anyone approaching at night. The same principle can still be applied today, just in a less messy form. Use uneven gravel or small stones under windows and along fence lines, since anyone walking across them will make noise. It's honestly one of the simplest, most low-tech early warning systems ever developed. One that requires no power and, well, cannot be hacked. Another forgotten innovation came from how people adapted to blackout conditions. During air raids, every bit of light had to be sealed to avoid attracting bombers. But this led to a discovery. Heavy blackout shutters not only concealed homes from view, but also served as physical barriers. Most families made them from layered wood, cloth, and sometimes thin metal sheets nailed together. These makeshift panels were fitted to interior window frames, turning fragile glass into a wall that resisted forced entry and shrapnel alike. They also trapped warmth during winter blackouts and muffled sound, a serious advantage during air raids or civil unrest. The method still works remarkably well for home security today. Modern preppers use similar layered panels made from plywood and insulation foam that can be mounted from the inside when needed. For anyone wanting a discreet, historically inspired home defense upgrade, blackout shutters remain one of the most effective deterrents that doubles as insulation. During the Second World War, especially in those occupied regions, civilians weren't always allowed to have firearms. So this led to a fair bit of improvisation. People would modify common tools to act as defensive weapons or even as traps. Shovels, for example, were sharpened and placed near doorways just in case. Brooms were sometimes hardened with nails in the ends so they could be used to jab at intruders. Farmers, being quite resourceful, tied ropes to bells or metal pans to create crude alarm lines across paths. It was, simple deterrence through sound and shock. And best of all, no electricity required. One of the most famous examples actually came from Norwegian and Polish resistance homes, where glass bottles were partially buried at window bases. The slightest pressure would shatter them, alerting everyone inside. Even today, this concept can be replicated using modern materials. You could attach hanging metal strips, bells, or even loose objects near entry points that create noise when disturbed. It's primitive, sure, but it's one of the few methods that can't fail during a blackout or power outage. A lesser-known trick, found in both British and German civilian defence manuals, involved what they called fat-sealed doors. People discovered that soaking cloth or felt strips in animal fat and pressing them around door frames not only blocked cold air but also made the wood swell, tightening the fit. The result was a door that couldn't be kicked in easily and that kept rooms warm during those freezing nights. This practical adaptation doubled as a defensive barrier. Fat-soaked material repelled water and prevented doors from rotting, increasing their weight and durability. Modern survivalists can actually replicate this effect by applying beeswax or linseed oil to fabric strips around entry points. It's a traditional sealant that strengthens the frame while keeping pests and drafts out. The brilliance of World War II home defence lies in how ordinary people adapted everyday materials for survival. They didn't rely on expensive technology or permanent installations. They used noise, friction, heat, and simple chemistry. Their defences worked because they made homes uninviting to anyone who wasn't supposed to be there. Today, when security often depends on smart locks and alarms, these old methods remain valuable for one simple reason. They always work. Gravel still crunches underfoot. Shutters still block light and sound. Oil and wax still waterproof and strengthen wood. These techniques require no power, no internet, and no maintenance, just understanding how to use your surroundings as tools. For preppers, homeowners, or anyone who values resilience, studying World War II civilian defence offers a masterclass in low-tech protection. These weren't paranoid measures. They were practical responses to chaos, and their legacy continues in modern security design. From motion sensors that mimic gravel noise to blackout curtains that trace their roots to those wartime shutters. If this deep dive into forgotten World War II home defences sparked new respect for civilian ingenuity, subscribe to In the Beginning for more hidden wartime technologies and the simple survival innovations that still hold power today. Share this with a fellow history or survival enthusiast, because sometimes the smartest defence doesn't need to be modern, only proven.